Welcome back to New Day Northwest. Throughout the 80s and 90s, Gary Ridgway terrorized our area, killing dozens of women. So far, the bodies of 49 women and girls, many of them teenagers, have been found and identified. And much has been written about Ridgway. But a new podcast by former reporter Carolyn Ossorio and produced by Brandon Morgan focuses the spotlight on the victims, the Shadow Girls.
It was kind of an itch I just kept scratching as somebody who grew up as a local here. When I was 10 years old in 1982, when that first victim was found in the Green River. And it really had an impact on me, and I just didn't realize quite how much. And so as I was researching the case, I just wanted to understand what happened. There were so many questions. I had done one episode for it, and I just had so many questions. And as a reporter, investigative reporter, I just kept digging, and I found a lot of things, like a 19-year investigation. There's just a lot of things that you can't talk about in 1 hour series. You know,
Right.
If you really want to do a deep dive, that's what's so great about a podcast. So it really kind of led me down that rabbit hole that Brandon went along with me.
You have a podcast of your own, right?
I do. Yeah. That's what actually got Carolyn's attention to my company. It was what also made the Shadow Girls with Carolyn's involvement so attractive. The podcast that I did, my first one, was called The Devil Within. It was about a murder in my hometown in New Jersey when I was a kid. My personal connection to the town and to the people involved, just enough of a skew on the traditional true crime that it was able to find an audience. And so with Carolyn's personal connection to it, we wanted to follow that same model.
Carolyn, with the Green River Killer, I mean, you used your investigative and reporting chops to research this very, very complicated case. What will we hear that we might not already know?
Well, I did interview a lot of the players and I use that word players. I don't mean to be flip about it, but it's like,
Right.
the first detectives on the scene. But being a local, you don't have to talk to that many people where you can find common ground where people are like, oh yeah, so-and-so, my sister knew him, or blah, blah, blah. And so I use that as, just talking to people just in my everyday life, but then also, doing all those PDR requests and trying to kind of piece together all these different ups and downs. Why did it take 19 years to solve all those questions that people always ask? Anyway, we really tried to bring a lot of the pieces that people might not know. For example, people probably don't know that Ted Bundy was actually, interviewed as someone who could help them. They picked your eyes are like popping out. In 1980, they were so desperate to try to figure out how to get into this guy's head that they actually, Detective Dave Reichert, who became sheriff, ended up going down there and interviewing him. He ended up being spot on a lot of his surprise, on a lot of his insights. But as you're listening to it, these tapes from back in the 80s, you're kind of getting sucked into Ted Bundy, and you kind of are facing this thing of ooh, this guy's a serial killer. It's like a Hannibal Lecter type moment where it's like you're getting pulled into it. And so little things like that where there's so many of those that people really just probably don't know.
Well, I'm glad that you all expanded it, because we have really seen this just unending desire for true crime podcasts, especially with women. You joke, you see these memes online that say, I'm watching it because I'm taking notes. But there is a reality to it, a very sad reality about women being so interested in these true crime podcasts.
What we really wanted to do with the Shadow Girls, bring those stories out of the shadows. And I think that from all of the research that I've done, not only just on Shadow Girls and my other true crime podcast, it's like a lot of women, I think like me, who've had traumatic childhoods, that's part of the growing process for me through this journey of Shadow Girls was kind of identifying wow, I didn't realize this. And I didn't realize how powerful this is. The toxic manipulation, the gaslighting, domestic violence isn't just physical abuse.
And that's kind of the secret sauce in podcasting, was Carolyn's just vulnerability, her availability to tell her story, her willingness to be able to tell her story and how it aligns with some of the childhoods of the victims. Thankfully, she wasn't a victim, but there's a world in which you could see that the childhood that she experienced had her potentially on that track. And so to position herself as a voice for the voiceless here is very, very powerful, coupled with the fact that you hear some of these interviews from law enforcement at the time that what was hindering the investigation, one of the main things hindering the investigation, was the lifestyle of the girls that were the victims. Like, oh, only if they were more upstanding citizens, people
Right.
would care more, right? And it's incredibly sad to hear them say that. And so now, 30 something years later, in a small way that we can do it, we have Carolyn telling their stories and saying it's not their fault. This guy was a madman.